only have 4 more classes after this. What happened to our school year? We only have 4 more classes after this. So I'm going to assign you a last paper. And after that, any writing you do is probably just going to be a paragraph or a short, because I'm not going to have time to have you write it, get it, look at it, give it back, you see, before the end of the class. And one of my students that I teach on Thursday morning had a brilliant idea. He said, wouldn't it be nice to have a paper where we just got to use our imagination a lot and have a little more creativity? Now, some of us don't like to use our imagination. Do you know what? I'm with you. Like, I'd rather write a 20-page report on something than have to use my imagination. I don't. No, see, okay, I'm with you. I'm with you, Oren. But some people love this. And at any rate, I'm going to make it an assignment that is very open. Do you know, I'm going to give you broad guidelines, and anything within those guidelines goes, you see? So that you just kind of have a little breather. You guys have worked really hard this year developing the idea of doing a persuasive essay, you know, coming up with arguments, supporting your arguments, and it's great and it's important, but it can be a little dry. So let's switch it up. What I would like you to do is find a piece of paper, an empty piece of paper. If you have notebook paper, or you can open up your reading guide to a blank page, because I'm going to write your assignment on the board for you. And then let me tell you what it is, and then we'll find out if there are questions. So hold on to your questions, because I might answer your questions before I'm done. Hopefully I will. Okay, so the problem with writing more Lord of the Rings stuff right now is you're kind of in the thick of reading it. Some of you know what's going to happen. Some of you do not know what's going to happen. But I can't very well ask you to write on stuff you haven't read yet. And some of you are mistaken about what's going to happen because you have only seen the movies. And there are big stuff you don't know because they changed it or left it out. Yes, sir. What does that mean? That's you what? Which one of those is you? Okay, so there are big shockers ahead that you don't have any idea of. So we're going to step away from writing about Lord of the Rings, and we're going to write a little bit about history. Do not groan. Do not groan. You didn't groan. Okay, so here's what I'd like to see. I would like to see, this is only a 3. Are you guys familiar that this little thing means pi, but also means paragraph? Okay, a 3-paragraph paper. That little thing means paragraph. I would like you to choose, this is another choose a character. But this character is going to be from history. In other words, this does not have to be a historical person. It can be like Joe, the serf who lives on Lord Duncan's land, you know, and works all day and slaves. It can be, is this about the paper, Oren?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this like pages of history, except without dressing up as a person and you can make up your own character?
I don't know what you just said. Okay. Why don't you hold all your questions till I get done and then ask questions, okay? Because I might answer your questions. Is this about the paper?
Yes.
What did I just say? What did I just say? Hold your questions until I get done and then see if you have questions, okay? Because I may be just about to answer your question. Okay. Choose a person. You can make them up, make him or her up. You could or choose someone from history.
Wait, I can make Joe or President Trump or
No, listen, Jake. Oh, okay. From medieval or Renaissance history. All right, that's what we're talking about this year. Okay, well done, Jaden. You made me clarify my terms, which is always an important thing. Got to be precise. I want you to make up or choose a person who lives in the Middle Ages of the Renaissance. I don't care if they're poor, or rich. I don't care if they're male or female. I don't care if they're grown up or kid. I don't care if they're powerful or a nobody. Don't care, right? But what I want you to do with them is write a story or tell about. It doesn't have to be like a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. His feelings or adventures in the time you chose. So we've covered a lot of ground. What if your guy, I'm going to write a story about Dilbert, the serf who lives on Lord Clarence's estate, and it's a day in the life of Dilbert, right? And so he gets up in the morning. What's his life like? Is his roof leaking because his hovel he lives in is so nasty? What is he going to eat? Does he have anything to eat? How many kids does he have? Is he working for his lord today, or is he working for himself, right? Or it could be Willoughby, the young squire of the Renaissance. And maybe Willoughby just heard news that they discovered new land on the other side of the world. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And then he says, plus I heard this guy in Italy saw moons going around Jupiter. Are you nuts? And what's up in Germany? What's up in Germany? This crazy guy is breaking up the church. You see? So that's a time period where there's a lot going on. These last few weeks that we've talked about, where people's heads are exploding because there's so much new information. Yes, sir. No, it wouldn't, and you don't have to, but no. Yeah, the equivalent of 3 paragraphs, okay? So it could look like one of our 3-paragraph story summaries. Do you know what I mean? It's like a day in the life of whoever. Or you could legit make up a story. I said adventures. Remember how we talked about the fact that when we did our 3-paragraph, we had setting and characters? Just a second, Nathan. And then we had a problem of some sort. And then we had how do we fix the problem? Do you remember that? In those 3 paragraphs, we did that last fall. You could do something like that. You could pick a guy and make up a problem for him. Maybe his local lord says he has to be Protestant and he doesn't want to be. Maybe that's his problem. Maybe he's seen Renaissance art and he wants to be an artist, but his family's too poor to send him to Italy to train to be an artist. How's he going to get there? You see, I mean, I literally don't care. This is just a chance for you to show me something we've talked about this year. Either last fall when we were talking more about the Middle Ages, this spring when we're talking about the Renaissance. Okay. That is my presentation. Questions?
I forgot my question.
I'm sorry. Maybe it will come back. Nathan, yes, you waited very patiently.
So could you write like 1 paragraph about like 3 people that kind of like have their lives intersected?
Oh, absolutely.
About more than 1 person and sent them.
Yes. I love it. Here's this, like it happens sometime in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, and I want all your figures of speech. These are the main thing. I'd like 3 paragraphs where you talk about people living in the Middle Ages of the Renaissance, and I would like all the figures of speech. And you have just free reign to make up, but not stuff that couldn't be there. Don't have them drive around in a Trans Am. Do they still have Trans Ams? Is that still a car? You're all looking at me like, okay, that was the supercar of the 70s. Like you were the coolest thing ever if you had a Trans Am in the 70s. Apparently, I missed the boat on that. I don't know. What's the cool car? I don't care. They can't have a race car. Okay, they can't have one because it has to be appropriate to the time. Okay, just a second. Jaden had his hand up first once. Okay, lay it on me.
Are we able to like present on this? I I think it'd be awesome to present on it. Like,
Ooh.
or like, or you write a paper or that type of stuff, and then you can bring like something to like present on it.
You know what?
Just like,
I think that would be very interesting and exciting. And if you want to do something like that, I will make time in the class for that, for anybody who would like to do that. But you are not required to do that. All right? Because some people just don't want to do that. Just a second. Hans had his hand up earlier. But don't forget it.
Do we need, so we don't need an intro or conclusion?
No. Just a story. Just as if it were a made up story, because it kind of is a made up story, if you know what I mean. Oren, you're on. Oh, that was the buildup. I was excited to hear what your question was. All right, so some of you love this. Like Jaden already seems excited. I get to make up anything I want. Awesome. And some people like Oren and me would go, oh, are you kidding me?
wait,
But it doesn't have to be completely made up, Oren. You can use everything we've read about from the time period. You know what I mean? Maybe, like, what book are they reading? Maybe your character's reading the Canterbury Tales and thinks they're hilarious because you read the Chaucer storybook. Maybe somebody's telling them the Arabian Night stories and they're enraptured. Do you see? You can use the things, so you don't have to, it's not like make up a story, Oren. If somebody said that to me, I'm just helpless. But if they said, set it here and make up a person, okay, well, after I've chosen, are they the lord of the castle or are they a serf? Is it a blacksmith? Is it a crusader? A crusader would have some amazing adventures, I bet. So this gives you whatever time that we've talked about this year you like the most, go with that. Do you like knights and castles? Go with that. Do you like the Renaissance and the Reformation? Go with that. All right, Jaden.
Can I do it on Johannes Gutenberg?
Yes.
I want to do it on his friend who made the little stick thing.
The little the letters.
For another thing, for another
See.
co-op, I'm gonna make where I'm supposed to make like a little printing press.
Oh, then put the two assignments together. Absolutely. Anytime you can put more than one assignment together, do it because everything's connected anyway. Yes.
So, could I make 4 paragraphs?
Yes.
All right.
One can always go A and B, the C of D, as they say, above and beyond the call of duty. A and B, the C of D. This is from Redwall, the book Redwall. They say that, A and B, the C of D. Any other questions? Oh, big question. When are you supposed to have this done? 2 weeks. So this is April the, what is this? April the 3rd. So April the 17th. April the 17th. And that way I can read them and get them back to you in a timely fashion before you all go away for the summer. What?
Oh, wait, no.
I don't do that. I don't believe in it. Any other questions? Here's the thing. If you start this week and you don't say, now I'm turning into mom, I know. And you don't say, oh, I've got 2 weeks for that. I don't need to do anything this week. Okay, first of all, then you're going to have to scramble. Second of all, if you have a problem thinking of ideas, you won't have time to bring them to class and ask. But if you sit down and start this week, then you will say, oh, I'm having trouble thinking of a character. Oh, I'm having trouble thinking of what a person like this would do. And then you can ask next week and we will all brainstorm and give you ideas. And we can steal ideas from each other. All right. But if you don't start, you won't have any questions, if you know what I mean. And then you'll go home and then you'll be scrambling. So I don't recommend that. All right. Any other questions? I very much, if you follow these guidelines, anything you embellish, extra paragraphs, any, go for it. Go for it. Give yourself a little break from doing all these 5-paragraph persuasive essays. All right. Give yourself a break. All right, can I erase this? Does everybody have what they need? All right, let's look at our reading questions. We are talking about England again today. A few weeks ago, we talked about Henry VIII. Oh, and by the way, I brought in a nice portrait of Henry VIII. Just like a little picture. Actually, he's a little heavy set, isn't he? Okay, let me put this for the people who aren't here. This is my Henry VIII. This is by Holbein. He's the slanty skull guy. Remember the painting with the slanty skull? Same guy. He did a lot of portraits, and he was commissioned to do this of Henry VIII while Henry was alive. This is Henry VIII. However, two caveats, as they say about this. First of all, we're all familiar with the fact that people can use Photoshop to make themselves look better than they do. Are we familiar with this?
No.
Yeah, okay. So sometimes women, when they get a little older and they want to post stuff and they're vain and they don't want to get old or whatever, like they airbrush out the wrinkles, or they make their lips big, whatever.
Good at Photoshop, but if you're not, it looks.
And if you're not good at it, you look like a hideous monster. So don't do it. You all look wonderful the way you are. You do not need to change your appearance. But this is not a new thing. People aren't always happy with their appearance. And it just so happens that a long time ago, when people hired someone, can you all see this okay if I go back here? Can you see it?
Yeah.
Well, it just so happens that people long ago, when they would commission a portrait to be painted, you know, if somebody's paying you to paint their portrait, you don't want to make them look hideous, right? You might want to make them look as good as you can make them look and still look like them. So that said, how much Henry VIII is this? Well, he's looking all right, you know. By the way, he's not that big. He has big clothes. You see, his shoulders are not that big. That would be kind of freakish. These are big clothes. He's very richly dressed. Before I talk about him, though, I got to tell you a story about Henry and about a picture that didn't look like the person. So, you know, divorced, beheaded, and died. Divorced. No, so we're at 4. It was this one. Henry wanted to get married again. Hey, guys, shh. This is a funny story. Henry wanted to get married again, a 4th time, for whatever reason. He now had a son, but this was the 4th one. And somebody said, oh, I've heard that Anne of Cleves, she's available, you know. He's like, okay, what's she look like? And so they had a portrait of Anne of Cleves made and brought to Henry. He's like, okay, she's good. And then she came to England. Yeah, she did not look like that. She did not look like that. I'm just saying. And Henry said, what's the deal? This is not what the picture looked like. So Anne's portrait maker had made her look considerably better than she looks in real life. So she ended up being another divorced in the cycle. So take a look at this Holbein portrait. What, just from this picture, can you tell me something about Henry VIII? Like, what kind of person do you think he is? Not thinking about what you know from history, but what does he look like? What kind of person does he seem like? Okay, why? Okay, he's super dressed up. He's dressed to the nines, as they used to say. Yes, Oren. Why?
Because he looks prideful.
Well, what specifically? What?
He's wearing extremely fancy clothes and he's looking at you like, haha, I look better than you.
Okay, look at how he's looking. He's looking right at you. Do you know how when people are a little humble or if they're a little shy, they might look away? And sometimes there's portraits done of people, they're kind of looking into the distance or something like that. He's, bring it on. Bring it on. I'm looking right at you. Also, how is he standing? What?
Yeah, it's like a stance.
It's like a stance. He's just like, I'm looking at you. You know, I mean, it seems like somebody perhaps who's used to getting his own way, right? I will barrel through you if you do not do what I ask. This is the impression I get from this, just the way he's standing and the way he's dressed and the way he's looking at you. And as far as we know, this was pretty much what Henry VIII was like. Hey, guys, Let's not. Let's not. It's very distracting. Yeah. So this is our friend Henry. He can look at you while we talk. Let's look at our questions. I told you that a few weeks ago we talked about Henry VIII and his marital woes, and we talked a little bit about the church. Remind me. This is the first question I asked you. What is Henry's main motive to break off with the Church of Rome? Why does he not want to be Catholic anymore? Yeah. He wants a divorce. He doesn't really have a problem with anything the church teaches. They just won't give him a divorce. Remember, first of all, the Catholic Church doesn't allow divorce because Jesus didn't allow divorce. So to get a divorce, you don't really get a divorce in the Catholic Church, you get an annulment. It means this wasn't ever a legitimate marriage. And the reason Henry thought he could do that is because, do you remember who his wife Catherine was married to before she was married to him?
A queen? I think
What?
a princess or
Well, she wasn't, no, she's a she.
queen. I said a queen. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, but I asked who his wife was married to
Oh,
before. Yes.
Friends?
She was married to his brother.
Oh yeah, right. Never mind. No.
Henry had an older brother, Arthur, who died. Catherine was married to Arthur. And then Arthur died, and Catherine married his brother, Henry, which is kind of yucky and was a no-no, right? The church, we don't marry our brother and sister-in-law because it's like your brother. You know, you're married, you marry into a family and they're like your family now, right? So your husband's brother is kind of like your brother. So he had to get special permission to marry her. He had to go to the church and say, can I please marry Arthur's wife, Catherine? And like, okay, yes, we will allow it in this instance. He made special arrangement and now he wants to divorce her. And he said, I think I shouldn't have married her. But who did I just say told him it's okay to marry her? Who said it's okay to marry her? The church. So if he comes and says, it was wrong for me to marry her, who is he saying is wrong? The church. The church messed up. They're not going to go back on that marriage. Not to mention, just to remind you, Catherine's nephew is our friend, Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, King of Spain and the Netherlands and Germany and, half of Europe. And he's not going to let his aunt get dissed by England. No way. So this wasn't going to happen. So Henry saw the only way to get a divorce is if I am the church. If I am the church, then the first thing I do is say, oh, I grant you a divorce. And I can get married again. This was his main motive. It's not a very nice motive. It's different than the Reformation and all the rest of Europe, They really cared about what the church was teaching. He just wants a divorce so he can have a son. This is all he cares about. And so the next question I asked you, he released the Act of Supremacy. What did the Act of Supremacy? It's kind of a hint in the name of the act. What do you think the Act of Supremacy said? Yeah, Hans.
It declares that he's the head of the church.
I am the head of the church.
Gives all the kings supreme pizza.
I am the head of the church. Now, hold on. Who did everyone else think was the head of the church? The Pope. Do creatures usually have two heads? No. Creatures with two heads. Not usually, but if they do, it's kind of freaky. I saw a calf once with two heads. It was dead. It was in a jar, of formaldehyde, but it was a calf and it had been born with two heads. Anyway, and it's not something you want to look at. Things that are only supposed to have one head, when they have two heads, something's wrong. So in England, they said, whoa, 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 whoa. The church already has a head. Because Henry didn't say I'm the head of the church in France. He didn't say I'm the head of the church in Germany. He said I'm the head of the church in England. I'm the head of the church in England. That's what I got done saying. I'm not the head of the church in France. I'm not the head of the church in Spain or Germany. I'm the head of the church in England. Now the church has 2 heads. This was problematic, to say the least. And a lot of people just weren't on board with it, including our buddy Thomas More that we read about a few weeks ago, who said, no, I won't sign the paper that says you're the head of the church because you're not the head of the church. And they chopped his head off because of that. It was not funny. He is revered as a saint in the Catholic Church because he stood up for the church. St. Thomas More. Okay, so the biggest thing that Henry did, because the church in England has a long history. It's kind of be filtering through the rest of our time together for the next 4 weeks. But the biggest thing Henry did was he closed the monasteries. He closed the monasteries. Now, let's ask the questions first, and then we'll unpack it a little bit. Why did Henry decide to dissolve the monasteries, according to Dorothy Mills? Nathan?
Because they were like collecting a lot of money.
Yes, and why did Henry care? What about the money? Who gets the money if they dissolve the monastery?
Church. Oh wait, no, he does.
He does. They're rich and he wants it. Now, supposedly, you have a group of people in England, monks and nuns, who are loyal to the Pope. And Henry says, we can't have this group of people loyal. So here's what he did. He had a team of people he called the visitors. This sounds a little creepy already, the visitors. And this is like a horror movie. The visitors. And they visit the monasteries. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, oh, yes, the visitors. They visited the monasteries, and here's what they did. Oh, I have my notebook out. Show me all your stuff. How many sheep do you have? How many cows do you have? How much land do you have? How much gold do you have? How much silver do you have? Oh, and then, hey guys, I need you to stop having a conversation. Then they said, well, tell me, do you believe Henry should be the leader of the Church of England? And they took notes. And supposedly, everywhere they found monks living bad lives, like collecting too much money or having wives when they're not supposed to in families or things like that. They shut them down. Really, they just shut them down if they were rich because Henry wanted the money. I looked up some statistics. Here's what Henry did in England. Oh, I've turned the page. Here we go. He closed just in England. And remember, England is not very big, right? England is smaller than Illinois. England is probably smaller than Iowa. England and Scotland together are probably smaller than Illinois. But I'm just talking about England, not Scotland right now. It's not very big. He closed 578 monasteries and 130 convents. That's where the nuns live. So we're talking about 700 religious houses. He put, and by the way, what are these monks going to do? Where do they go now?
Nowhere.
Yeah, except they've got to do something because they have to eat. They're going to go on the streets. So if they have money, they're going to go to Europe somewhere where they can join another monastery. If they don't, okay, first of all, I've been made to break a religious vow because I can't be a monk anymore. Second of all, I have no income. Where do people who are wandering around looking for jobs go to look for jobs? Where are more jobs to be found? What sort of place?
Bars.
That's very possibly. That's very specific. I was thinking bigger geographically. So if I live in a small town to the big cities, that's what I was gonna say. If I live in a small town in southern Illinois or in the middle of Iowa and I'm homeless and having a job, I'm gonna go to Cedar Rapids or Des Moines. I'm gonna try to find a job there. This is what these guys did. But what happens when everybody goes to the town looking for a job? Are they all gonna find one at the same time? No, they're not. So listen to this. He threw out 6,500 21 monks, and 1,560 nuns. They're out of work. They're on the street. So we have, and again, over 8,000 people. Not to mention the 12,000 other people that were employed by the monastery, doing grounds works and things like that. They weren't monks. Now we're up to 20,000 people in an area smaller than Illinois or Iowa who are suddenly out of work. Listen to this. Listen to this number. They think Henry made about 1 million pounds. That's about $2.5 million. But that's $2.5 million in the 1500s. Not $2.5 million today. I have no idea. Tens of hundreds of millions of dollars. I doubt it's that much. But it's considerably more than $2.5 million today. That's a lot of money. And, it made some people really happy because who gets a cut of that? Those visitors. It's like, give me a cut. I helped shut down this monastery. Where's my cash? But a lot of people were disgusted with this. And this is the second half of the same question. What happened as a result? We already said bunches of people were thrown out of work. And now they're roaming the countryside or the cities and looking for work. What else happened, Hans? Schools. Who ran most of the schools? Monasteries. If your little town had a monastery, you all sent your kids there. You certainly sent your sons. In a lot of cases, you sent your daughters too. They didn't care. Teach everybody to read. You can't now. There's nowhere for them to go. There will be no learning in your town. The school is closed. What else did monasteries do for people that they can't do anymore? Do you remember what monasteries did for people? Put him down.
They read the books.
They copied and read books. It wasn't as important a job anymore because of the printing press, now that they could print books. But still, they were scholars often. And now they're out of work. Yes.
They also cared for sick people that came in.
They were the hospitals. They were the doctors. By the way, I told my kids this yesterday. If you're looking for something cool to watch, I don't know if you have BritBox, it probably is on that, but you can get DVDs from the library. Have you guys ever seen the Brother Cadfael series?
No.
It's a series of books, and they made them into a TV series. They're mysteries. They're murder mysteries. But Cadfael is a monk. He's a medieval monk, and he used to be a crusader, and then he got sick of the bloodshed, and then he became a monk. But he's super smart, and so he solves mysteries. It's awesome. But the reason I bring him up is because he's the doctor. He's the herbalist. So in the show, he has a little herb garden, and he knows what herbs to take to the sick people, and he travels around the town. Shrewsbury, they live in, and he travels around, and he, ministers to sick people, and he also solves murders, which is awesome. And I can recommend these to you. They're very clean. I mean, people get killed, obviously, but they're not. There's only one scene I can think of that might be of a questionable morality nature for me to recommend. Everything else is really cool. But they did a really good job of evoking what was life like in a monastery, but it shows one of their big jobs. Brother Cadfael was the doctor for the community. Well, now they've just got rid of their doctors. Great. Now the monastery is dissolved. My son is gravely ill. He's got like 107 fever. Who are you going to call? Not the monastery. Not the monastery, because the monastery's gone. So I guess your son's just going to have to die. Yeah. I don't think Henry realized how much monasteries did for people. Okay, let's not. I'm sorry. I was thinking of Ghostbusters. I said who you're going to call intentionally, but I didn't mean for it to turn into a Ghostbusters thing. So it's on me. So Henry he made a lot of money, but he did a lot to ruin a lot of towns who don't have doctors and don't have teachers anymore. What was the act of uniformity? This is the next question I asked you. What's the act of uniformity? Yeah, Nathan.
Wasn't it like the combining of like the king and the church? And we're giving like the.
Okay,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Or giving like the king a lot of power over the church.
Well, that was more the act of supremacy. Get uniformity. Think about that. Yeah, Hans.
What, the parish priests had to use the English prayer book.
Yes. And everybody has to attend church on Sunday, their local church. So Henry hired people and he said, okay, we're not Catholic anymore, but we like Catholicism. They do everything great. So we want you to make up a book for us to use in our churches that's like their books, but not their books because we're not using their books anymore. And it has all the readings and prayers and everything for our church. And this was called the prayer book, the English prayer book. And the king said, every church will use this book. And you better show up in church on Sunday. Don't you think about skipping. Don't you go off and start your own church. And you better not go to Catholic Mass because we will chuck you into prison. Don't you seek out a priest and go to Mass. Don't you dare. Uniformity. So everybody is the same. Yeah, Oren. No, I mean, always they make provision for that. But by skip, I just mean, I hate that church and I'm not going. The the parson is a goofball and I want to listen to him talk. That was not an excuse not to go. Like, you had to go. They did not. And okay, I won't go into that. I'm just going to give a speech on live streaming churches, but we will skip that. Yeah, so everybody in England had to be in the Anglican church and use the same book. Okay, then Henry died. And his son Edward was king very briefly, and then he died. That kid that he married 3 women to get, and then finally he didn't rule very long. He died when he was a teenager. And the next in line is his daughter, Mary. Mary is Catherine's daughter, who was a little girl and saw her mom thrown out and divorced and disgraced and was taken to France, where they are very Catholic, to grow up. And she came back and she said, I don't think so. Yes, Oren. This is Bloody Mary, which is really not fair. And I will tell you why in a minute. And okay, let's just ask the last question. What happened to England under Mary's rule? Nathan. She killed some Protestants. But bigger than that, she abolished the Anglican Church. She said, we're all going to be Catholic. We are a Catholic nation. We're going back. Now, I told Oren and you guys that Bloody Mary isn't very fair. And here's why. When she first became queen, she said, okay, here's the deal. I'm Catholic. I get that some of you Englishmen don't want to be Catholic anymore. How about if we just each do our own thing? How about if I go to Mass with my people and you guys go to the Anglican Church with your people? How about that? And neither side likes this because everybody wants them all to be the same. Then, and this is important, this is actually, if you listen, this is a pretty cool story, Jaden and Xander, and this is a cool story. People in Spain and France started working with other Catholics in England, and they said, well, no, I've got that backwards. That would be under Elizabeth. Protestants in Germany and the Netherlands started working with Protestants in England. They said, hey, how about if we send people in to assassinate Mary? We'll take over. We'll just take over and claim England as a Protestant country. We'll bump her off. And they tried. And she found out about it. Now, please do something for me. Imagine you're the king and you find out groups of assassins are on their way. And are you going to be happy with the group who's sending the assassins? I don't think so. You're going to say, we got to crack down on these Protestants. They're bloodthirsty. And so she did. She did. So, unfortunately for Mary, there was a guy named John Fox. And he wrote a book that you may be familiar with. We know it as Fox's Book of Martyrs. And it goes back like Jesus, it starts with Jesus. and the disciples, and it goes through, but the bulk of the book is martyrs in England under Mary. There's a chapter called The Fires of Smithfield. Smithfield's where they burned people at the stake. And he only included Protestants who were killed for their faith. He did not include any Catholics killed for their faith, ever. Only Protestants. And so Elizabeth took over later, and she put to death a good number of Catholics. But nobody ever talks about that. Bloody Mary is horrible, and she kills Protestants, and then Elizabeth kills Catholics, and this is fine, right? Because the history was written by Protestants of this time, right? They're pro-Protestant, and so they're like, oh, we don't care. We don't care if she kills Catholics. They ought to die. But oh, heaven forbid that she should kill the Protestants. But she did. She did kill Protestants. And then, to everyone's relief, I guess, she died. And there's only one left of all the family of Henry VIII, his daughter Elizabeth. And Elizabeth had some good sense. I don't even know how, no one knows really how Elizabeth felt about theology. She felt like she was the queen and she had to do something. And she said, here's the deal. Everybody is hating on the Catholics. We can't do that. Guys, can you put that away? Whatever that fruit, whatever it is, are we so hungry that we have to pass food around right now? Like, are you really that hungry?
I'm not, but I'll take it.
Could that wait? I mean, could it have waited 45 minutes? Probably. Should I go on or should I just stop? Okay. Because guys, we have 4 weeks left. I've been fighting this all year. All year. Like, you can't sit for an hour and a half and listen. Please. Now, I'm not talking to all of you, obviously. I think we know who. Okay? Please have some respect. If you don't learn anything about the Middle Ages, learn some respect. Just have respect. Okay. That has been unfortunately live streamed on YouTube, but you know, everybody, I'll get hate things in my chat. Elizabeth said, I'm not going to be the head of the church. How about I'm governor of the church? That sounds tame. And I'm going to actually leave Elizabeth there and move on to Lord of the Rings, because we're going to revisit Elizabeth. Elizabeth ruled for 40 years, and things were really good in England. She must have done something right. I think this has got nothing to do with our lesson today, but I think it's really interesting. There have been 2 Queen Elizabeths, and they both ruled really, really long times. Elizabeth, the first Elizabeth, over 40 years. What? Elizabeth II, who died just a couple of 60 years? Over 60 years she was queen, something like that? Long time. All right. Next week, you're going to read about Scotland. There was a guy in Scotland named John Knox, and he was so annoying to England. Not to everybody in England, but to those groups that wanted to be more Catholic or Anglican. Read chapters 15. Is that right? 15 and 16 for next week. Chapter 16 is just sort of thrown in there. It's called the Bible in English. And it's about all the different translations that were done in English, before the Reformation even. And it compares some of them. It's really kind of interesting. I think it's got Psalm 23. It's got Bible passages in 3 different translations, and then you can compare them. Do any of you have a Bible at home that has more than one translation in it? It's called what is that called? But do you know what it's called, Oren? When you have more than one? Yeah, and you can open them all. My husband has a Bible that when you open it up, it's got the same passage in 4 different translations, like on the same page of that section. And it's very cool. It's enormous because it's like 4 Bibles, but it's got like the Living Bible and, New Revised Standard. It's got 4 different translations, and you can compare all of them on a page. It's called something, but I can't remember. Chapter 16 is like that. It's comparing the same passages. Read that, start your paper. We finished off the 2 towers this week. And
Bilbo died. Yeah.
Bilbo did not die. What book did you read?
And then stopped dying.
He did
No,
not.
that's Frodo. That's
I don't even know what.
Wrong character.
Who's dying?
Frodo died and then stopped dying.
Well,
I don't know what we're talking. I read the book and I don't know what we're talking about.
Shelob.
Oh, okay. No, he didn't. He wasn't ever dying. He was poisoned. He was spider poison. You scared me. I thought, is there another version of this book? Is there a version where Frodo dies? What? Did I miss that one? Okay, here's what I want to talk about. What do you think of Faramir? What kind of person is Faramir?
He's wise.
He's what? What does he do that seems wise? Just a second.
Well, I guess he's not quick to like act. Then he would have like killed the hobbits.
This is
Like,
true.
maybe Schmeagol, too.
You know, they're in a place. Do you guys have maps in your books? Or Jaden, you're listening to it. Do you have a map? Like, do you have a book with a map in it?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So you guys know. Here, I need to erase Brother Cadfael. You know, so here's Mordor, right? And then there's a river. And then you know, like Gondor is over here, and Minas Tirith, and over there there's Osgiliath. But then there's this land, and it's basically the backyard of Mordor. It's not a good place. And who hangs out in the backyard of Mordor except like orcs, you know? So Faramir is with his guys over here, and then he runs across these hobbits. And he's under orders, if you remember, like kill or capture anyone you find over there, because they got to be up to no good. And then he finds these guys. And you're right, he could have killed them. You're in a band, you're in a restricted area, you're going to have to die. But he waited. It's a good thing he waited. Jaden, what were you going to say?
Oh yeah. In the movie, the spider it didn't show how the spider hurted or hurt Frodo.
Well, and we just know how spiders bite and inject poison, right? And
I know, but it didn't show it. That's the thing about it.
well, it kind of did in the movie with the big stinger. But let's not talk about the movie. Let's concentrate on what the book had to say. But let's go back to Faramir. So Faramir made a wise decision. Faramir also said something else that was really, really wise. Okay, so when he captures them, does Frodo tell him about the ring right away? No, because this is top secret information, like need to know basis. You don't want it getting out that I'm carrying around the One Ring. You don't want to advertise this to the world. So, like, what are you doing here? Says Faramir. He's silent, right? But then Sam, bless his heart, sort of blurts it out because Sam is Sam. And first, look, Sam. And Faramir says, "Oh, I understand. Now I understand." And whose brother is Faramir? Who is Faramir's brother? Boromir. What was Frodo's last interaction with Boromir? Tried to steal the ring by force. So imagine you're Frodo. You got the ring. You run into Boromir's brother. Like, oh, crud. It's another one. It's another one. Wouldn't you think that? Kind of. He's going to go for it too. And when Faramir finds out what he's got, listen to what Faramir says. Fear no more. I would not take this thing if it lay by the highway. Not were Minas Tirith falling in ruin, and I alone could save her. So using the weapon of the Dark Lord for her good and my glory. No, I do not wish for such triumphs, Frodo, son of Drogo. I wouldn't pick this thing up. We would say, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Don't worry. I don't want it. Is that like Boromir? No. How are Faramir and Boromir so different, do you think? Yeah.
Faramir is less rash. He's like, oh wait, this could be used. He knows a little bit about this.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what he's talking about.
But Boromir seems really sure of himself, doesn't he? Remember at the council? Like, you know what? I don't know. You're a bunch of nutcases. I think we should use it. Why wouldn't we use it? And then he says, okay, well, I guess I'll go along with all the rest of you if that's the vote. But remember how he just kept gnawing at them? Like, aren't we going to go to Minas Tirith? Why don't we just go to Minas Tirith? Why don't we change our direction and go to Minas Tirith? Why don't we take it to Minas Tirith? You know, he's always trying to move in there. Faramir could have, shouldn't we go back to Minas Tirith, Frodo? Maybe you want to take a break? Maybe you want to come with me and talk to my dad, talk it over. He lets him go. He lets him go, knowing that when he gets home, he's going to catch it. You know, his dad ordered him not to just let people wander there, and he did it. He did it anyway. I think that's amazing. Faramir is pretty amazing that he just let him go. And he said something else that I found very wise too. Remember, Gollum was kind of lurking, but they didn't get captured, right? And then they see him down in that pool, that secret pool of the like secret Gondorian hideout, and where no one's supposed to come. And he says, "Is that yours?" He says to Frodo, "Does that thing belong to you? And if so, what am I supposed to do with it?" And Frodo says, "Don't kill him." He says, "I am bound to that creature." He says, after he captures him, he says, "Do you take Smeagol under your protection?" "I do take Smeagol under my protection," said Frodo. I like the rest of this. Sam sighed audibly. You know, the but not at the courtesies, because they were all doing, "Yes, I take him under my protection." It was all very formal. Not at the courtesies, of which, as any hobbit would, he thoroughly approved. In fact, in the Shire, such a matter would have required a great many more words and bows. Hobbits are apparently very polite people. We know why Sam is sighing. It's like, oh, shoot. And we get that blasted Gollum with us again. But listen to what Faramir said. "Frodo, I think you do very unwisely in this. I do not think you should go with this creature. It is wicked." "No, not altogether wicked," said Frodo. "Not wholly, perhaps," said Faramir, "but malice eats it like a canker, and the evil is growing. He will lead you to no good." Is that true? Oh, it's totally true. He's already set him up, right? Like he's been plotting the Shelob thing for days. For days. That he'll lead him that way, and she'll eat Frodo, but she doesn't eat clothes. She doesn't eat jewelry. She'll leave it behind, and then it's mine. That brings me to another question, and I want to know what you guys think. Try to forget. Oh, I don't know. Forget. I was going to say, if you know how the story is going to end, try to forget that. But I guess it's not necessary. Try not to let anything out. All right, past the end of the Two Towers. But here's the question. Gandalf said, there may be some good left in Gollum, and he may have a job to do before the end. Faramir says he is wholly wicked. And we saw this scene. I had it marked, but I didn't read it to you guys, and I don't know how to find it now. Once Sam woke up, and he saw Gollum standing over Frodo. And he was like covering him up a little bit, like he was being nice to him. He was taking care of him. Because Sam's watching and he thinks he's going to throttle him right now. But he wasn't. He was treating him gently. He was the master of the precious. Here's the question that I'm curious how you guys feel about it. Do you think Gollum could be fixed, like redeemed?
Yeah.
Brought back to the good. Why do you think, Jaden? And if so, what do you think might do it? What would somebody need to do to heal him, do you think?
They need to, one, say, I did this, and I'm never going to do it again. That was bad.
Oh, like a pause.
You mean,
Yeah, like he did that in the book, actually. He's like trying to fight over the good side and the bad side.
What, so you think, do you think, Jaden, he needs to come to some sort of repentance, we would say? He needs to say, I did a bad thing and I'm not going to do it anymore. Is there any way to make him get to the place where he can do that, where that side wins? Do you know what I mean?
Like
What?
when,
Just a second.
Or like, I think it's gonna be hard because, or like, if they get, or I already know what's gonna happen, but if, okay, I'll just say if they throw the ring into the fire, he's gonna go all crazy. He's gonna like want to try to jump in the fire.
What, Jaden? What if they destroy the ring and he's not controlled by the ring anymore? Do you think
He might be okay.
he might be okay? What do you think? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jaden.
Like, just change
Yeah.
it up.
Or, Oren, what do you think?
I think he needs to eat some more food.
Yeah.
Something other than fish.
Nathan. Hey, Nathan. Did you have something? Did you have an idea?
No, I was just going to say, why not just throw the ring in the fire? Oh.
Well, I mean, that's what they're trying to do, right? But my question is, is it possible that might heal Gollum? Might he be normal? You know what? We did find out that if you destroy the ring, everything controlled by the ring is going to fade. So remember that there's three elvish rings, and it's not revealed. We know Galadriel has one because she showed it. She showed it to Frodo. Frodo could see it, and Sam couldn't see it. Do you remember that part when they were in Lothlorien? And she held up her hand, and he saw the ring. And Sam later said, "I wondered what you were talking about. I just saw a star shining between your fingers." Now she has one of the elven rings, and she said, "If you destroy the one ring, the power of this ring fades. Lothlorien fades. The power of the elves fades. So if its power fades there, could its power fade over Gollum? Like, how do you know? Let's put it in another way. In this world, not with hobbits and Smeagol creatures, in this world, is there anybody who's ever so far gone that they're not savable? If they want to be saved. Do you think anybody?
Want to be saved, then no.
Demon?
Okay, a demon. A demon. Why do we think they're not savable? They're not redeemable?
I'm not a demon anymore.
Yeah.
And then they're not a demon.
They chose to go with Satan. So
Yeah.
Apparently they chose to go.
Wait,
What-
question. How are demons demons? Like, they're not people.
Because they're angels. They're angelic.
But how do you become an angel?
You start that way. You start that way. They were created that way. And then apparently, before very much time passed at all, Satan led a rebellion. And the rebels are the demons. But I like you picking that out, Jaden, because as far as we know, demons are not redeemable. Like they've got a path set and they can't come back from that. But so there's this cool book by C.S. Lewis, you know, who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. Yeah, well, actually, I'm thinking of The Great Divorce. And a group of people come from hell and they visit heaven. And the weird thing is, the people who come from hell in this book don't like heaven. They come because they just want their own way. You know what I mean? Like they want it to be their way. They don't come because they want God. They just want their own way. And there's this one lady, and she comes from hell to visit heaven, and she's talking to her friends or family, whatever, and all she does is complain.
Wait, who does this?
This lady in this book, a lady from hell that's visiting heaven, and she complains all the time. And C.S. Lewis is a character in the book, and he asks his guide, he says, she doesn't seem so bad. She's just kind of a grumbler. That's not so bad. And his guide said, yeah, well, that's the question. Is she a grumbler or is she only a grumble? Like, is all the humanness gone from her? Is all that's left is one big grumble? Has she eaten away all of her humanness? That's the question. I wonder if Gollum has eaten away everything that made him like an okay creature before he met the ring. And I wonder if there's any way to put him back.
I
Does-
mean, he still does walk. Still knows how to walk.
I mean, he's
If you don't know how to walk, you aren't a human.
Well, that's true. But I didn't mean his physical. I meant more like, Jaden, I meant more like his insides. Like the thing that makes him rational and reasonable and yeah, like his heart. Yeah, that's the question. I wonder if his heart is gone.
It says the heart is one of deceitful and wicked things.
well, okay.
Okay, Nathan.
So that doesn't
Nathan's got the
mean
answer.
His heart is fully deceitful. Besides, he's still kind of nice to Frodo. So yeah, I do think that he's redeemable.
That is
Is Frodo seem to be doing everything?
He needs therapy.
Hey, you guys, does Frodo seem to be doing everything he can think of to help him? He's trusting him, isn't he? I mean, it's not a good thing that he's trusting him, it turns out, but he's trusting him. He's giving him some responsibility. He's saying, I have faith in you. Here, let me read another passage on this topic. Interesting. Okay, listen to this. And so Gollum found them hours later. Sam and Frodo were sleeping, and Gollum has slunk off. When he returned, crawling and creeping down the path out of the gloom ahead. Sam sat propped against a stone, his head dropping sideways and his breathing heavy. In his lap lay Frodo's head, drowned deep in sleep. Upon his white forehead lay one of Sam's brown hands, and the other lay softly upon his master's breast. Peace was in both their faces. Gollum looked at them. A strange expression passed over his lean, hungry face. The gleam faded from his eyes, and they went dim and gray, old and tired. A spasm of pain seemed to twist him, and he turned away, peering back up towards the pass of Cirith Ungol, the pass where Shelob is. Peering back up toward the pass, shaking his head as if engaged in some interior debate. Then he came back and slowly putting out a trembling hand. Very cautiously, he touched Frodo's knee, but almost the touch was a caress. For a fleeting moment, could one of the sleepers have seen him, they would have thought that they beheld an old, weary hobbit, shrunken by the years that had carried him far beyond his time, beyond friends and kin, and the fields and streams of youth, an old, starved, pitiable thing. But at that touch, Frodo stirred and cried out softly in his sleep, and immediately Sam was wide awake. The first thing he saw was Gollum, pawing at Master, as he thought. Hey, you, he said roughly, what are you up to? Nothing, said Gollum. Nice, Master. I dare say, said Sam, but where have you been to, sneaking off and sneaking back, you old villain? Gollum withdrew himself, and a green glint flickered under his heavy lids, almost spider-like. He looked now. Isn't that an interesting description? Gollum is almost spider-like, and he's about to lead him to a big spider, although we don't know that yet. Almost spider-like he looked now, crouched back on his bent limbs with his protruding eyes. The fleeting moment had passed beyond recall. Sneaking, he hissed. Hobbits always so polite, yes. Oh, nice hobbits. Smeagol brings them up secret ways that nobody else could find. Tired he is, thirsty he is, yes, thirsty. And he guides them and he searches for paths, and they say, sneak. Very nice friends. Oh, yes, my precious, very nice. Sam felt a bit remorseful, though not more trustful. Sorry, he said. I'm sorry, but you startled me out of sleep. And I shouldn't have been sleeping, and that made me a bit sharp. But Mr. Frodo, he's that tired, and I asked him to have a wink. And well, that's how it is. Sorry. But where have you been to? Sneaking, said Gollum, and the green glint did not leave his eyes. He has a moment. He's like, oh, I remember when I was a creature like this, and I had friends, and I slept, and what dashed him out of it? What event in that, what I just read? And what did Sam do? He yelled and insulted him. He didn't trust him. He wasn't doing anything. And he said, basically, you're wicked, you're evil, I don't trust you. And it snapped him out of it. Is it possible that we can help heal people by showing them a little love and kindness? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. You guys probably don't know a lot of people who are not like you. I don't know. Maybe you do. Like, don't go to church or, like are Gollumish. But it makes a big difference how we treat people, even if we think they're a little suspect. Doesn't it? I don't know This is why I asked the question, could Gollum be saved? I don't know. It seems like there's a spark of something left. When Faramir said, that creature is wholly wicked, and Frodo said, no, not wholly. I think Frodo's right. But I don't know what would fix it. All right. I also wanted to talk about, oh, one of my favorite moments in the book. And this is something they did super well in the movie. They did a lot of things bad in the movie, but some of it was well done. And this is one of them. They're walking in this no man's land, nasty place, right? And it's been basically ravaged by orcs. Are you with me, gentlemen? Xander and Jaden? And remember, there's been darkness. Like there's a cloud that's come out of Mordor and everything's dark all the time. There's no day, there's no night, it's just dark. Standing there for a moment filled with dread, Frodo became aware that a light was shining. He saw it glowing on Sam's face beside him. Turning towards it, he saw, beyond an arch of boughs, the road to Osgiliath running almost as straight as a stretched ribbon. It's a nice simile. Down, down into the west. There, far away beyond sad Gondor, now overwhelmed in shade, the sun was sinking. The sun is going down and it's below cloud level for just a moment. Finding at last the hem of the great, slow rolling pall of cloud, and falling in an ominous fire towards the yet unsullied sea. The brief glow fell upon a huge sitting figure, still and solemn as the great stone kings of Argonath. The years had gnawed it, and violent hands had maimed it. Its head was gone, and in its place was set in mockery a round, rough-hewn stone, rudely painted by savage hands in the likeness of a grinning face with one large red eye in the midst of its forehead. Upon its knees and mighty chair and all about the pedestal were idle scrawls mixed with the foul symbols that the maggot folk of Mordor used. This statue of a great king of old has been vandalized by orcs because that's what orcs do. They just break things and ruin them because they can. Suddenly, caught by the level beams, Frodo saw the old king's head. It was lying rolled away by the roadside. Look, Sam, he cried, startled into speech. Look, the king has got a crown again. The eyes were hollow, and the carven beard was broken, but about the high, stern forehead there was a coronal of silver and gold. A trailing plant of flowers with small white stars had bound itself across the brows, as if in reverence for the fallen king, and in the crevices of his stony hair yellow stone crop gleamed. They cannot conquer forever, said Frodo. And then suddenly the brief glimpse was gone. The sun dipped and vanished, and as if at the shuddering of a lamp, black night fell. For a moment, the old head of the king had a crown. It was flowers growing across it, but the sun shone out. I was like, oh, it looks like he has a crown. The last book of this series, what is it called? What is the book we're going to start? The Return of the King, which tells you something. There is a name for what authors do when they throw something in that tells you something that's going to happen later. Gollum sitting spider-like, that's one of them because he's about to take them to a real spider. The king having a crown again, and then we're about to start a book called Return of the King. It's called foreshadowing. Foreshadowing. And you know what? You don't always catch it the first time you read something because you don't know what's going to happen, right? But when you read it again and you run into it, it's like, oh, the author said that, and he's giving us a memo to tell us what's about to happen. The king is going to come back. He says they can't conquer forever. But at this point, does it look like they can conquer forever? I mean, everything's dark all the time. There was just a glimpse of light and then it was gone. But Frodo thinks it can't last forever. And of course, the fact that we are going to start a book talking about the king coming back gives us a clue that maybe it's not going to last forever. Okay, this is the last thing I want to talk about. We may, you know what? Here's your reward. We may not even go till 10 after today. We may just chat. I know. See? See what happens if you just stay with me and you participate and, and then we get done and then we have time. I love this. So I want to read a section to you. Do, 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 do. All right. Sam's talking, and he says they're just walking, and they're walking up the stairs to go to the place where Shelob is, except they don't know that. We shouldn't be here at all if we'd known more about it before we started. If we'd known where we were going, maybe we wouldn't have come. But I suppose it's often that way. The brave things in the old tales and songs, Mr. Frodo, adventures, I used to call them. I used to think they were things the wonderful folk of the stories went out and looked for because they wanted them, because they were exciting and life was a bit dull, kind of sport, you might say. But that's not the way of it with the tales that really mattered. Hey guys, I want silence while I'm reading. You can give me that. I mean, I'm not just reading to myself. But that's not the way of it with the tales that really mattered, or the ones that stay in the mind. Folk seem to have just been landed in them usually. The paths were laid that way, as you put it. But I expect they had lots of chances like us of turning back, only they didn't. And if they had, we wouldn't know because they'd have been forgotten. We hear about those as just went on, and not all to a good end, mind you. At least not to what folk inside a story and not outside it call a good end. Coming home and finding things all right, though not quite the same, like old Mr. Bilbo. But those aren't always the best tales to hear, though they may be the best tales to get landed in. I wonder what sort of tale we've fallen into. I wonder, said Frodo, but I don't know. And that's the way of a real tale. Take anyone you're fond of. You may know or guess what kind of a tale it is, happy ending or sad ending, but the people in it don't know, and you don't want them to. No, sir, of course not. Baron now, he never thought he was going to get that Silmaril from the Iron Crown in Thangorodrim, and yet he did, and that was a worse place and a blacker danger than ours. That's a long tale, of course. And goes on past the happiness and into grief and beyond it. And why, sir, I never thought of that before. You've got some of the light of the star glass from the Silmaril that the lady gave you. Why, to think of it, we're in the same tale still. It's going on. Don't the great tales ever end? No, they never end as tales, said Frodo, but the people in them come and go when their part's ended. Our part will end later or sooner. And then we can have some rest and sleep, said Sam. He laughed grimly. And I mean just that, Mr. Frodo. I mean plain, ordinary rest and sleep, and waking up to a morning's work in the garden. I'm afraid that's all I'm hoping for all the time. All the big important plans are not for my sort. Still, I wonder if we shall ever be put into songs or tales. We're in one, of course, but I mean put into words, told by the fireside, or read out of a great big book with red and black. Jaden, I want you to come sit over here. Okay, just get up, leave your stuff, and just come sit over here. Because quiet also meant not playing little games. It's just, I can't, so distracting. And everybody around you can't listen. Thank you, sir. I wonder if we shall ever be put into songs or tales. We're in one, of course, but I mean, put into words, told by the fireside or read out of a great big book with red and black letters, years and years afterwards. And people will say, let's hear about Frodo in the ring. And they'll say, yes, that's one of my favorite stories. Frodo was very brave, wasn't he, Dad? Oh, yes, my boy, the famousest of hobbits. And that's saying a lot. Saying a lot too much, said Frodo. And he laughed. A long, clear laugh from his heart. Such a sound had not been heard in those places since Sauron came to Middle-earth. To Sam, suddenly, it seemed as if all the stones were listening, and the tall rocks leaning over them. But Frodo did not heed them. He laughed again. Why, Sam, he said, to hear you somehow makes me as merry as if the story was already written. But you've left out one of the chief characters, Samwise the Stout-Hearted. I want to hear more about Sam, Dad. Why didn't they put in more of his talk, Dad? That's what I like. It makes me laugh. And Frodo wouldn't have got far without Sam, would he, Dad? Now, Mr. Frodo, said Sam, you shouldn't make fun. I was serious. So was I, said Frodo, and so I am. We're going on a bit too fast. You and I, Sam, are still stuck in the worst places of the story, and it is all too likely that some will say at this point, Shut the book now, Dad. I don't want to read anymore. Maybe, said Sam, but I wouldn't be one to say that. Things done over and over and made into part of one of the great tales are different. Why, even Gollum might be good in a tale, better than he is to have by you anyway. And he used to like tales himself once by his own account. Wonder if he thinks he's the hero or the villain. Sam says, the world is full of stories, isn't it? But do the people in the story know they're in the story, if you know what I mean? Can you think of a story, something that really happened, not a made-up story, okay? Like a great achievement, like something we say, oh, remember when people did such and such. Can you think of something like that that the story gets told? I've got a couple of ideas if you don't, but like something that's really actually historical.
The entire Renaissance of Reformation.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of something a little more specific than that, a specific tale. I'll show you what I mean. Men landed on the moon. Are you kidding me? Men got in a spaceship and flew to the moon? Now, this is not a very good example, unfortunately, because I'm thinking the people that got into the rocket ship knew they were in a pretty important story, but they could have all been killed. And then it would just be the sad story. Oh, remember that time those guys got in that ship and it blew up like the Space Shuttle Challenger did? Maybe you know about that in the 80s and killed everybody on board. Like it could have been that kind of story. They didn't know they were going to get back alive, right? Yeah, like Apollo 13. Yeah. But here's a good one. How about once upon a time, a group of men got in boats and they crossed the English Channel and they landed on the coast of France. And the coast of France was full of German mines and tanks and guns. And they just jumped off the boats and climbed onto the shore and started storming France. This is the D-Day landing. They did that. They turned World War II. Some of them are still alive. Not very many, because that was a long time ago now. Like, this is an amazing story. But when they got in the boat that morning, do you think they thought, I am going to go down in history as one of the people who stormed the beaches of Normandy? I don't think they did. You're in a story. This is what I'm driving at. You're in a story. We don't know what kind of story. Actually, we do know what kind of story. The big story. Is our story a happy ending story or a sad ending story? Which one is our story? All of us in this room, all Christians.
According to Revelation,
It's a happy ending story. We may be in the part that's not very nice. Do you know what I mean? There's bunches of people. Jaden's uncle was sick recently. A lot of people are in a part of the story. It's not a nice part of the story. But the story is a happy ending story. But what is your part? We don't know. We don't know. But I love the fact that they talked about this. Do you think there will be a story about us, Mr. Frodo? We're in a story. We're in a story that started long, long ago with the light from the Silmarils, and it's trapped in that little glass that Galadriel gave you. Then later, I want to read to you two descriptions of one of Frodo and one of Sam. And they sound like, okay, they are characters in a book, I realize, but in their world, they sound like characters in a book in their world. Listen to Frodo. This is Frodo versus Shelob. Enormous spider, horrifying. You can crawl under if you want to get it, or you can wait. I don't even know what it was.
No, it's okay. I'll just wait.
All right. Okay, here we go. Galadriel, he called, and gathering his courage, he lifted up the file once more. His eyes halted. For a moment, their regard relaxed, as if some hint of doubt. I'm sorry, not his eyes, the eyes. Shelob's eyes. For a moment, their regard relaxed, as if some hint of doubt troubled them. Then Frodo's heart flamed within him, and without thinking what he did, whether it was folly or despair or courage, he took the file in his left hand and with his right hand drew his sword. Sting flashed out, and the sharp elven blade sparkled in the silver light, but at its edges a blue fire flickered. Then holding the star aloft and the bright sword advanced, Frodo, Hobbit of the Shire, walked steadily down to meet the eyes. He sounds like a warrior, doesn't he? He sounds like he's little Hobbit Frodo from the Shire, who never traveled much or did anything beyond this. And suddenly he's become mighty. But this is the best one. And I think the furnace sometimes just makes that. I know we're all distracted every time it's like somebody's breaking in the window. They're not. It's just the furnace. All right, one more thing, and it's 10 minutes early, but we're gonna stop. All right. Frodo, as we talked at the beginning, has been poisoned by a spider. And we know what spiders do, right? They poison their prey and they stun them and they wrap them up and then they suck their juices out, which is just reason 524 why spiders are disgusting. Many more than that. But to all, back to what Oren said at the beginning, to all appearances, Frodo is dead. Sam thinks he's dead. But they take him into the Orc Tower. And then he finds out he's alive. And Sam, there's nothing for it, but for Sam to break in and rescue his master. And he gets across the barrier using the Phial of Galadriel. And he just starts killing any orc he finds. Fortunately, he doesn't find very many because they've just had a big row and killed each other. But listen to the description. By all the signs, Captain Shagrat, I'd say there's a large warrior loose. Elf, most likely, with an elf sword anyway, and an axe as well, maybe. And he's loose in your bounds, too, and you've never spotted him. Very funny indeed. Sam smiled grimly at this description of himself. A large warrior elf. It's Sam. He's scared to death. Do we sometimes just do what we have to do? Do you know any stories? Do you know anybody who's ever done something daring and saved someone's life? Or I don't know anybody personally that's done this. Pulled somebody out of a burning car, or dove into the cold water to save the drowning person. When they interview these people later, they often say, well, I didn't really think about it. I just did it because that's what you needed to do. If you think about it too long, you don't do it. You just instinct and adrenaline. I think that's Sam. He's like, well, I've got one choice. Break in and save Frodo if he's not dead. Please start Return of the King. I want you to read chapters 1 through 4. All right? Return of the King has another one of these. It's got 2 parts, but you're not going to have to wait the whole first part before you meet Frodo and Sam again. They're going to come together. But read chapters 1 through 4. Start your paper, please, so that you can ask questions next week. If you have trouble thinking of ideas, and we will help you. And read chapters 15 and 16 in Dorothy Mills. We've got 9 minutes, but I'm just going to close it down. Does anybody have a question or a comment or something else you want to talk about? All right, then I will leave you to your own devices.